Greetings everyone. Today we're going to explore the properties of real numbers. For today's notes, you'll want to have the foldable that looks like this. We've handed it out in class, but you can also always take notes in your own notebook paper or access on Google Classroom. When you open up the foldable, it looks like this. And so what we're going to do today is we're going to open one flap and then we're going to take notes on the corresponding side. Now I'm going to zoom in to make this process a little bit easier, but just know we're looking left to right. We're looking at individual rows. So let's look at the first row. The title says, if you look on the front of the foldable, the commutative property of addition. And what the commutative property of addition states is that A plus B is equal to or the same as B plus A. So an example we could fill in is if I told you 2 plus 3, you could have responded and said that's the same as 3 plus 2. Addition can be flipped and we still arrive at the same answer. Now it can be letters, it can be numbers, it could even be symbols. I could say triangle plus square is the same as square plus triangle. Similarly, with addition, multiplication. Again, if you look at the front, you're going to see the tab titled Commutative Property of Multiplication, which means A times B is the same as B times A. We can multiply values in different orders and arrive at the same solution. So let's look at an example. I could say 2 times 3, which we know is 6, is the same as saying 3 times 2, which is also 6. So if you're not sure, plug in numbers to see if it still works out. The next tab on your foldable says Associative Property of Addition. So whenever I see this word associative, I think of associate. Who do I associate with? Meaning, think of friend groups, right? Friend groups can kind of move around, but they still all stay together as friends. So take a look at these parentheses here. One day, A plus B is hanging out, but they still have friend C. And then the next day, B plus C hang out, but they're still friends with A. So we can move the parentheses, we can associate with different people in addition, and it's still true. Let's do a numerical example. If I have 3 plus 2 plus 1, parentheses first would get me 5 plus 1 is 6. Now on the right side, let's do 3 plus 2 plus 1. See how the parentheses shifted? We still get 6. So associative means who are you associating with today is my little trick to remember when dealing with addition. And guess what? If I can move things around for addition, I can also move around for multiplication. So look at the title, Associative Property of Multiplication is on the front tab. We can move the parentheses when dealing with multiplication, and it would still be equal. Let's do some numbers to show you what I mean. 3 times 2 times 1. That would get me 6, which would be the same as saying 3 times parenthesis 2 times 1. Which would still be 6. The identity property of addition is our next tab. The identity property of addition says if you add 0 to any value, you still have that value. So here's how I remember it. This is my trick. What can I add on to where my identity will stay the same? Well, 7 can keep its identity by adding 0. Triangle can keep its identity by adding 0. Any number plus 0 stays that number. So the trick is, what can I add on where it keeps its identity? The next tab is sort of similar. We're talking the identity property of multiplication. What can I multiply a number by and it will keep its identity? 1. For example, 5 times 1, it keeps its identity of 5. Pi times 1 keeps its identity as pi. Any number multiplied by 1 keeps its identity. 0 property of multiplication. So this is saying what happens when I multiply by 0. A times 0 is 0. Anything in the world times 0 is 0. So 5 times 0, still 0. Pi times 0, still 0. Triangle times 0, still 0. Now I know you guys know that calculation. We're just tying the official property name to it. 0 property of multiplication. Multiply by 0. The last tab on our notes says multiplicative property of -1. So we're just saying, hey, what happens when we multiply by -1? Our value changes signs. So for example, if I have a 5 times -1, well, the number stays the same, but now it's a -5. What if I have -6 times -1? Now it becomes a +6. So when we multiply by -1, we're just changing that value's sign, positive to negative or negative to positive. Now, if this is not in your notes, you don't have to write this down. We're just going to go through and identify the properties. So I would suggest flip to the front of your foldable, and we want to see if we can identify the rule. So if I look at this example, look through your list, what property deals with multiplying by 0? Look for those words, right? That's a little bit easier one. We've got the 0 property of multiplication. Let's try this one. Okay, first make note. We're multiplying. So look through the property list at the multiply options. Notice 2 and 3 we're associating one day, and then 3 and 4 we're associating the next day. We're dealing with the associative property. Which one? Well, we're multiplying, so of multiplication. All right, let's take a look at this one. First, make note. The operation is multiply. Look at that list. What are we multiplying by? We're multiplying by -1. See, look for those hints. The multiplicative property of -1. Well, this one's pretty simple. There's not much writing, but I see that there's an addition sign. So look at all the addition rules. And just look, the only thing that changed was it flipped, right? So that's going to be the commutative property of addition. Now, process of elimination is going to be your friend here, right? If you narrow it down to just the addition properties, we have 1, 2, 3, 3. So narrow it down to those 3 and then decide what property you have. All right, let's take a look at this one. Again, I see addition, so narrow it down to the 3 addition properties. Well, 3 and 5 we're associating one day, and then 5 and 6 we're associating the next day. So they're still all friends, it's just who they associate with. Associative property of addition. Let's take a look at this one. First of all, we are multiplying. Make note of that. What are we multiplying by? Well, we're multiplying a 4 times a 5 and then a 5 times a 4. So there's no -1s. There's no zeros. There's a flip involved, right? So narrow it down to which ones deal with a flip. We have the commutative property of multiplication. Let's take a look here. Here we're adding, so I just want to make note of that. But this one's a little bit unique because we're adding 0. And notice the question and the answer are the same. It kept its identity. I'm adding something, which normally changes a number, but it didn't. It stayed the same. So this is the identity property of addition. Oh, this one kind of looks the same. See how we started with a 9 and we ended with a 9. It kept its identity, but this time we're multiplying. So this is the identity property of multiplication. Now take a look at your tasks for today. Remember, everything is posted on Google Classroom. So see what the task is that we need to finish or complete or work on. Know that on future assessments and practice, you're going to have to do what we just did. Given the property, what's its name? You might also be asked to create more examples. So hang on to that note sheet. Let me know if you have any questions. And until next time, have a good one.